Hey gang, Dr. G, Mental Health Monday time. So continuing on our course in staying strong, the series of videos. Today we're going to talk about conquering fears that drive addiction. Even if we're not talking specifically about an addiction, these fears can essentially cause you to trip up in whatever it is you're trying to do with your self-development. So I want to go through 6 of these and kind of talk a little bit about them and then give you some takeaway points that you might be able to use. So the first one that I hear about all the time, and these are covered by Steve Melemis in his article, link will be in the description. I've seen these, he comments on them briefly, and I'm expanding on that here. First one is the fear of not measuring up. And that's when you are essentially, you'll go back to addictive behavior or problematic behavior or whatever it is, essentially because you're afraid that you can't handle whatever it is that's expected of you. So you feel like you can't measure up, so you're going to go use. Fear of being judged. That's another one. That's one, curiously enough, that will lead people to use. It will lead them to behaviors that they later regret. Very interesting. And it's essentially this really deep-seated fear that other people will judge them negatively. The third one is fear of being a fraud and being discovered. So similar to the fear of being judged, but it's got a different character to it as well, though. It's one of these like imposter syndrome sorts of things. Again, you're not measuring up, but it's of a different flavor, if you will, in the sense that, oh, I'm afraid I just won't measure up, or I'll be discovered and people realize that I'm really a fraud. I'm not really good at what I'm doing. I really don't know what I'm doing, and so forth. The fourth one is not knowing how to live in a world without the addictive behavior, whatever it might be. Curiously enough, that leads people to addictive behavior. It's kind of like they just give up. You might say that, in a sense, they're kind of giving themselves a pass. But again, it's not something that's done consciously or necessarily done out of, just wanting to kind of get by or be lazy or quote unquote, whatever. It's more this deep-seated fear. It's often difficult to verbalize. Fear of success is another one. Now, you might think fear of success, well, what sense does that make? But you've got to understand this from the perspective of someone who is really being ruled by these fears that hold them back. Fear of success is really about, well, if I do succeed at whatever it is that I'm doing, then people will start expecting more of me. I have a deep-seated fear, a deep-seated belief in inadequacy. So I'm going to avoid that so that I don't stumble and fall. I don't try to put myself out there, and then people expect more out of me, and then I'll fail. And then the sixth one is fear of relapse. Fear of relapse, funny enough, can lead people to relapse. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're constantly thinking about it. You're not focusing on what it is that the addictive behavior is actually, that need that it's trying to fill, but is a drug and covering it up rather than actually satisfying you. Instead, you're focusing incessantly on the relapse and what if I relapse and so forth. And it can just be so overwhelming that you wind up using just to cope with the anxiety. Now, of these 6, this is what I want, the take-home message I want you to look at here. Notice how all of these, fear of not measuring up, fear of being judged, fear of feeling like a fraud, fear of not knowing how to live in the world, fear of success, fear of relapse, all of these things are fears of life. And you might ask yourself, okay, why would someone have a fear of life? And it stems from not knowing how to live. In other words, it comes from not knowing what the rules are. Take, for example, the fear of not measuring up or the fear of being judged. Well, how do I know if I measure up? If I don't know what the rules are, then I'm going to be afraid that I won't measure up. If, however, I know what I'm supposed to be doing, I know who I am, I know how I'm related to everyone in my life, I know what the rules of engagement are and what the rules of code of conduct is and so forth and so on, then I don't have to worry about that kind of thing. So I think a lot of these fears, if not all of them, stem from ambiguity with respect to how to live. Now, I'm not saying that it's easy, but I'm saying that we do everyone in our culture a disservice by basically not giving them anything to work with. Let me give you an example. So my father taught me how to tie a tie. Okay. The current generation looks that up on YouTube. We are inundated with conflicting messages. Now, I'm not saying tying a tie is everything the key to life. Okay. All I'm saying is that we typically learn this stuff from our immediate family members whom we trust, presumably, if you have folks in your life that do. Instead, what we have, though, is, again, disconnection. Something I talk about a lot here, something that I talk about in my nonfiction writing. We have conflicting messages. We have the pseudo culture. It's just mass media, this illusion that there's this consensus on beliefs and things like that. But it's a huge illusion because it's malleable. It changes from one day to the next. It changes with the wind. It changes with economic things. Instead, we get that on top of nonstop messages of just be yourself, screw the rules, just be a rebel, blah, 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 blah. In an environment like this, how in the world is anybody supposed to know what they're supposed to do to live a good life? How are they supposed to know that they measure up? I mean, you got to know some way. Either you do or you don't. So why is this so difficult? It's because we don't know what the rules are. And this applies to folks that struggle with addictions, much more so, I think, than with people that don't. Now, they still cause problems in other areas, absolutely. But this is a big one. So instead of actually having a clear-cut idea of what we're supposed to be doing with ourselves, how we're supposed to live, what we end up with all of this, just be yourself and all that kind of stuff, is a belief that the only thing that really matters is your curated aesthetics, your affectations, your consumer preferences. All of that kind of stuff is what people pour all of their energy into instead. And I think that's it. It's easy to mock that and be irritated by it, but that's not the intention here. The intention, rather, is to recognize that that is a symptom of an underlying problem. When everything is okay, then it really feels as though nothing is okay. In which case, well, then I better just do the best that I can by creating this image of myself in the eyes of other people that I know and in my culture, so that I'll at least get attention, if nothing else. I'll at least earn some sort of distinction amongst a vast swath of disconnected and nameless people. That's a problem. That's a problem. We don't have belonging. We don't have community. We don't have any of that stuff. And with respect to these fears, what we need most, I think, is a code of core values, if you will. Now, I am a vet, and in the Air Force, we had something called a set of core values: integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. That was something you could always kind of fall back on. Now, that's kind of vague, and it would be great if that was a little bit more concrete, but you got to start somewhere. Now, is that for everybody? Yeah, probably not. But you got to have something to hang your hat on. You have to have something. And I think that's what really a lot of these folks are missing. They're missing that key ingredient of what is the roadmap? What am I supposed to be doing with myself? Really? What are the things I need to do in order to feel like I measure up, that I can defend myself against being judged, that I don't have to be afraid of being a fraud because I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't have to worry about living in a world without my addictions because I know where I am and what I'm doing and why. I don't have to be afraid of success because I have proven to myself time and again that I can do it, that I can do whatever it is that I'm setting out to do and what I've agreed to do, at least. And last but not least, of course, I don't have to fear relapse. So just some things to think about. I know I'm speaking in relatively broad terms here because I want people to really kind of think about this and apply it to their own specific situation. And I'm not going to be the one here to, on YouTube, tell you what to do with your life. That's up to you to decide. But what I am saying, though, is that you should probably not try to do it solely by yourself. Expand outward and find what works best for you so that you don't have to be afraid. So that's my Mental Health Mondays for you today. I hope that was helpful. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, go check out ericgoodwyn.com, get on my newsletter, enjoy all that stuff. Got lots more things coming up about both my fiction and nonfiction writing. And that's what I got for you today. So see you next time.